save lives. So if you think you're okay to drive after a few drinks, think again. Drive sober or get pulled over. Paid for by NHTSA.
My little girl hurt her foot and needed a doctor, fast, but her physician wasn't available, and I wanted her seen as soon as possible. Then I remembered the Wheeling Hospital Urgent Care, right in downtown Wheeling, at the Stone Center on Market Plaza. Open 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. every day, the center is ideal if you have a sudden sickness or injury. The doctors and nurses were great, and they also provided x-rays, a pharmacy, and lab draw station. No appointments needed, and convenient parking is nearby. Wheeling Hospital Urgent Care. They'll take good care of you.
Millions plan for retirement online. Estimate your future benefits, apply for retirement, and manage your benefits all from the comfort of your home. And give yourself the freedom to do what you want offline. Social Security's online services help put you in control with secure access to your information anytime, anywhere, allowing you to spend more time with family, friends, or simply just enjoying the day. Social Security, securing today and tomorrow. See what you can do online at socialsecurity.gov.
U.S. taxpayer expense. Over the years, you've brought opioids into your home. They helped when you were in pain, and you held on to them just in case. But holding on to opioids puts your family at risk. Learn more at www.fda.gov/drug disposal.
For all of your IT needs, visit OmniPerforms.com. Omni Strategic Technologies, the only IT company that the watchdog trusts.
The Storm Tracker 7 team is here to warn you when winter weather will affect your day.
And as we go through the overnight after our coating of snow, we'll wake up tomorrow morning with a few snow flurries.
We are also here to help you make the most of the season. Is it a good day to build a snowman? Should you take the kids sledding? Check out our app before you head out the door.
We're going to bottom out to temperatures in the upper 20s.
With meteorologists Dr. Dave Walker, Zach Petty, and me, Aaron Myler, we've got weather coverage you can count on. 7 News, working for you.
Hello, everyone. From the Watchdog, I'm the Storm Tracker Darnell Foster. With a look at your local weather forecast for your Tuesday, partly to mostly sunny skies. Daytime high of 64 degrees. Overnight low of 41 degrees under partly cloudy conditions. Mix of clouds and sunshine for your Wednesday with a high of 67. Have yourself a great day, everyone. From the Watchdog, I'm Darnell Foster.
The views and opinions expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of this station or its sponsors.
This is the Watchdog Morning Show with Howard Monroe and Brad Leonard behind the board in the producer's chair.
A lot of stuff to talk about today. Governor Justice has been railing against the federal guidelines that may keep him from using COVID relief money to fill up his reserve buckets. He's not happy about that at all. The governor is touting his reduced income tax as an incentive for more people to come to West Virginia. But a group of Democratic legislators, including our own puppet master, Sean Fluharty, among them, think that it's jobs and quality of life issues that retain and attract young people to the Mountain State. We will talk with Senate Minority Leader Stephen Baldwin about that issue coming up a little bit later on this morning. As West Virginia opens restrictions on bars and restaurants and stores, the CDC is now offering guidance for how those of us who are already vaccinated can begin to rejoin society. And the short answer is it's okay to hang around with other vaccinated people, but be careful in large crowds. Senator Manchin is firmly opposed to eliminating the filibuster, but he is open to making it harder to filibust, which is something I've talked about over the years a lot, and we'll get into that. Locally, Wheeling University placed on probation. Controversy over the Ohio County School Resource Officer deputies. That controversy continues. And I-70 traffic patterns are going to be changing once again. Plus, we'll be giving you a chance to get registered for our Watchdog Madness contest, where in conjunction with the March Madness, we pick 64 of you and link you up with the 64 teams in March Madness, and you'll follow your team, and the winner will win the big screen TV that we've got for you. So that's coming up a bit later on as well. But first, let's talk about what's happened in the nation's capital, and as we do every Tuesday, Tom Squitieri is with us to help talk about that. Good morning, Tom.
Hey, good morning. Happy Tuesday.
Yeah, I'm curious about something. I've been following a lot of the congressional hearings about the insurrection, the January 6th, and some of the talk about what needs to be done, what did happen, and so on. Is it still an armed camp there in D.C.? Does it still look that way? Do you think it's going to stay that way for a while?
Two questions there. I think that, generally speaking, I think that we're going to see permanent changes to the face of the capital area and maybe other parts of D.C. Perhaps not as dramatic as we saw after 9/11, but certainly noticeable to people who have come on a regular basis and have seen the Capitol, or tourists and visitors for the first time who have seen photos of the pre-January 6th Capitol and say, oh, it's different. I'm not quite sure exactly how that's going to look. Yesterday, a task force formally briefed 3 committees on the Hill. Some of their material was out before. And in regards to the visual of a fence, for example, we have a fence, there's a fence now around the Capitol, with razor wire and all that. And that's caused a lot of people to be upset, both the District of Columbia officials and bipartisan members of Congress. This task force recommended some kind of new fencing around the Capitol, perhaps retractable fencing, but it did recommend fencing of some sort. So you may see something like that. I'm almost certain you'll see something like that, as much as I can be certain about anything in the future. The other aspect would be less noticeable, Howard. There would be perhaps a rapid reaction force ready to move in on troubled areas at the Capitol or elsewhere. Better powers of authority, say by the Capitol Police, a chief who can make a decision quickly about reinforcements as opposed to the more cumbersome policy now. Likewise, as you may know and listeners may know, the District of Columbia is not a state. So in order for the mayor to seek the National Guard, she can't, it's a she right now, the mayor cannot declare it like a governor, like Governor Justice could in West Virginia. The governor, quote unquote, of the District of Columbia is the Secretary of the Army, who has to declare. So, it's a much more cumbersome process. So there's some type of stuff like that in the proposed reforms. Now, the other issues are that the guard's going to remain an armed camp, you asked. They have asked to extend the guard duty from mid-March, this month, through May. The Pentagon is still considering that request.
There were concerns on March the 4th, the day that Trump was supposed to ascend to the presidency again. There had been some, I guess, online chatter or whatever. They had heard potential threats of serious violence there. It didn't occur, but I guess what we learned after the insurrection on January 6th was that there are a lot of really angry people out there who don't have a problem taking their frustrations out in violent ways. So I hate to see an armed camp. That may be too strong a word, but just a personal thought. I think we're going to have to tighten security a lot more. Than
the March 4th was the original day for presidents to be inaugurated in the days, when they traveled by horse to D.C. and elsewhere. That was changed, but that's why March 4th was a date that was being bandied about by some groups in communications. Now, there's a May incident that they're concerned about, and I haven't really figured out the exact reason why May is being chosen. I've tried without success. So there's that. The other thing is the report that the intelligence folks, say that when President Biden goes to Congress to deliver his first joint session, a speech for a joint session, there would be an attempt at action then. See, the difference now, Howard, is that as we saw on January 6th, as you said, a lot of angry people. Many of them were well organized and they can communicate quite well with each other, either in social media or off social media in private channels now. So they're out there, and they're probably going to wait for the opportunity. Again, January 6th, they had the perfect storm, no pun intended, in that the security wasn't as great as it should have been. Early warnings seemingly were ignored. That's not the case now. People are more alert. Obviously, the security is better. Whether you have an armed camp or not, there's a lot more awareness of the potential danger. So, I think we'll see some changes. I don't know what kind. There's a real strong resistance, as I said a few moments ago, on Capitol Hill to sort of like the optics of the situation of having guardsmen patrolling, military-looking individuals patrolling and protecting the Capitol. They don't like the optics of that. And the razor wire fencing, of course, is a really bad optic put up, for the inauguration itself.
And that concern over optics actually was one of the concerns that kept the response down during January 6th, right? I mean, there was worry that
that's correct.
Too many people there, too many armed guards or armed, guardsmen with the military attire on and the helmets and so on would just leave a bad, well, use your word, optics. And so they didn't do perhaps what should have been done based on pure security measures. So I get optics. Believe me, I get optics. It's part of what my job is. But I worry you can't let that dictate security, right?
Well, you're right about it. There's going to be optics. I mean, look, when I moved to Washington, D.C., everybody could drive on Pennsylvania Avenue right in front of the White House, and you haven't been able to do that for many years now. It's secure, and many people would argue that makes sense, in the days of car bombings and stuff like that. They've done a pretty good job of making, until recently, that was still a nice visual. You can go to Lafayette Park and see the White House. That's all changed ever since last summer now, of course. So, the physical beauty of that part of our nation's capital has been changed because of security measures. And there is a balance that has to be achieved, and it's not always easy to do that. I think one of the keys could be flexibility. Obviously, what they did for the inauguration was important, and it was a strong visual optic statement to be made. Don't try anything as well, and I think it worked. And people could say that was a smart thing to do for the inauguration. Now, what are the things to do forward? And I think that's why this task force, a lot of recommendations, and that's what they are, recommendations to be considered, and how they are used, implemented, adapted, discarded is the key.
Tom, in all of the hearings that we've had recently and the discussions that have been both in the media and on Capitol Hill, do we really yet have an understanding of how things got so out of hand on January 6th? Was it disorganization, lack of communication, decline, a refusal to be properly prepared? I mean, I paid attention, and I really can't. I always like to be able to write a sentence at the end of it and say, this is the problem. And I'm not sure I've been able to do that yet.
You touched on everything that was part of it, and there's more. Look at it from two distinct sides. One, the organizers themselves of the insurrection, they were very organized, and they knew what they were doing, what they wanted to do, had a plan. You may remember there were reports of 2 pipe bombs found. Mm-hmm. One by the Republican committee headquarters, one by the Democratic committee headquarters. And then, it was originally thought this was part of the whole insurrection effort. And it's still thought that, but they thought that now the thinking is, with further investigation, that those pipe bombs were planted as distractions to sort of draw law enforcement and security folks away from the Capitol to those 2 sites. They're not that far from the Capitol, but nevertheless away from the Capitol. To then, make it easier for the insurrectionists to do their thing. That's how organized they seem to be. And this is not science fiction. This is after a couple weeks of investigation. And you know how this works. There's the people at the top who are very well organized with weapons and radios and a plan. So that's that side of it. Then there's the other side of it that, once again, there were some warnings about this happening. Listen, Howard, I saw these things on social media. Other radio hosts like yourself were aware of them, and we talked about them. So it wasn't like these possible threats were unknown. It's like what happened to that information, how was it processed, and how did the different agencies act and react and prepare for it. And that's the question. That second part is still the question that really needs to be answered. We did see some of the, as I mentioned a few moments ago, the reforms about streamlining decision-making process. That was a problem. Was there a reluctance in the Pentagon because of the optics that we could talk about to either authorize the troops ahead of time or slow solely considered the request on January 6th for the same reason? That question hasn't been answered yet. I spent a lot of time at the Pentagon, and it's not really been answered. So that side of it, the reaction side of it, the preparation side of it, probably needs a harder look. And as these things happen, oftentimes it's a succession of shortcomings or failures together that made it easy. One of them perhaps may have, one failure or one shortcoming on the side of the good guys may not have caused sort of the breakdown of what happened to make it easier for the insurrectionists to get into the Capitol. And let's remember the bravery of the Capitol Police and others in stopping them at some point. I always like to remind listeners that, even despite being, the report yesterday was talking about how the Capitol Police were just not even equipped to deal with a kind of large protest like this. It's more like they were equipped to deal with a First Amendment issue, in other words, people carrying signs and shouting, but not trying to storm the Capitol.
Right. Well, I think we've got a long way to go before we get the whole thing figured out, and we'll see what's going to happen in the nation's capital. Big story this week is a COVID relief bill. I want to talk about that in just a minute, so hang in there, Tom. Yep. We'll chat about that coming up. Tom Squitieri is our D.C. reporter. He is with us this morning here on the Watchdog Morning Show. 46 degrees at 8:24.
Hey, sports fan. Are you ready for the madness that is March? Watchdog style. Tune in every day for your chance to win a spot on our Watchdog bracket. 64 listeners will be
Friday, get $2 off appetizers, $3 off domestic drafts, and house wine specials. Quaker Steak and Lube voted Best Wings USA. Quaker Steak and Lube at the Highlands with another steal of a deal. Get a steak burger and fries all day Monday for only $8.99. It's also Military Mondays. The Lube will take 25% off for all veterans, active duty military, and first responders. Quaker Steak and Lube voted Best Wings USA.
Plumbers and Steam Fitters Local 83 want to thank the owners and contractors of the Ohio Valley for using their locally trained workers to help build for the future. Local 83 helps design, fabricate, and build the gas infrastructure for the oil and gas industry here in the Ohio Valley. Plumbers and Steam Fitters Local 83 is 300 members strong and growing. They also do residential, commercial, and industrial work on both sides of the river. For more information, call Plumbers and Steam Fitters Local 83 at 304-233-4445.
Hey, I'm going to the kitchen. Can I grab you a Coors Light?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Huh. I never knew there was a zip line in my fridge. Hey, buddy! Yeah! You got 2 Coors Lights up there?
You got it! Always brewed down to 34 degrees. With a taste as cold as the Rockies, only Coors Light gives you refreshment every time.
Here you go. 2 Coors Lights.
Awesome, man. Wow, these are really cold.
That's the only way I deliver it.
Sure. I mean, you being a mountain climber and all?
Yep.
You probably need a pretty warm coat in there, huh?
Yep.
Hey, Ben!
Yeah?
Ask him if he has any nachos.
You got any nachos in there?
No.
Just icy cold Coors Light?
Yep.
That makes sense. It is the Rockies.
Coors Light, the world's most refreshing beer. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. With great beer comes great responsibility.
Smithfield, the Watchdog is protecting your yard. Join Howard Monroe, Hoppy Kercheval, Bill DeFabio, and Big Rick for the best live and local talk in the Upper Ohio Valley and beyond. Smithfield trusts the Watchdog.
Watch out! He could climb on his soapbox at any time. The Watchdog Morning Show with Howard Monroe continues.
Partly cloudy day today, daytime high 61, pretty much the same tomorrow, a little bit warmer, maybe 65. Chance of rain beginning in the afternoon on Thursday, staying with us overnight into Friday morning. Temperatures begin to drop on Friday down to the 40s for the weekend, but a couple of nice warm days are in store at least. 46 degrees at the Wheeling, Ohio County Airport. 46 degrees here at my home studios in the Elm Grove section of Wheeling, and 46 degrees at the Robinson Auto Group Studios, downtown Wheeling in the heart of the Ohio Valley. Our regular D.C. reporter on Tuesdays is Tom Squitieri, and Tom and I are talking about some of the issues in the nation's capital. Tom, the big issue this week, or the big thing last weekend, I guess, was the Senate approving the COVID relief bill, that huge $1.9 trillion bill, with no GOP help whatsoever. And only after Senator Manchin dragged it out for a good while, which was kind of interesting. Now it goes to the House, which will, I assume, concur with it, and then should become law, right?
That seems to be what's going to happen. This is Tuesday. They could vote on it today, and then President Biden would sign it. And it's interesting. Some of the changes were made, lowering the threshold for those who are eligible. It's interesting to compare this relief bill for COVID with the one passed during the Trump administration, and the priorities and where money goes. And it is interesting that Democrats did vote for the COVID bill pushed by President Trump, then President Trump, and he had some Democratic support, substantial, and no Republicans voted, as you said, for this one, which it's just typical of what's happened in Washington over the last 10 years or so. Of the partisanship. There's no reason not to vote for this bill. There's a lot of reasons not to vote for it. It shouldn't be like that. Some people have serious objections to it. But overall, it's going to help the country and help a lot of people. And it's a good timing for it, too, because with the vaccine rollout happening, more of the population is getting vaccinated. If you're looking for a rebirth in summer of the economy, which is a good time to target the culmination of an economic relief bill, with the vaccinations, with the numbers sometimes stabilizing in some states, not all states, it's a good package. Now, the feds are unhappy with what's happening in states like Texas and Mississippi, where the governors are sort of already jumping the gun on opening up their states. The next couple months could be a real pivotal moment in how to beat down COVID, at least get it under control. The bill should help that process.
Of course, the fact that we are sort of maybe coming out of the pandemic a little bit, that's one of the reasons that some of the Republicans say we don't need this bill, because we're beginning to get back to normal. The COVID problems are not as great as they were, and so we don't need all of this relief. That at least is one of the arguments I've heard made. I don't buy that, but that's one of the arguments.
Let me use a sports analogy, and just ask the Atlanta Falcons and the Seattle Seahawks and any other team that led the New England Patriots in the Super Bowl in the third quarter going into the fourth quarter. The game isn't over until the fourth quarter is over. And this is not to cast the Patriots as COVID, to be clear. It's just a matter of fact that the game is not over against COVID. We're starting to win. We're starting to meet it head on and turn the tide. But in anything, and this is not me being a partisan. I want to I've praised on your show, the effort by the Trump administration to get a vaccine going. Their role was critical in that, and that was very important because now we have two vaccines, 3 with J&J and more. So it's not the time; it's the third quarter. It's not the end of the game.
Dr. Clark Milton from Wheeling Hospital was with us last week, and he used a similar analogy. He said, "Don't spike the ball before you cross the goal line."
That's a good one, right?
Which I think is exactly right, and that's what I fear that we're doing. We're spiking the ball. We're this close. We might be on the 1 yard line, but we are not. We're certainly in the red zone, but we're not at the goal line yet. And don't spike the ball till you cross the goal line. I think that's really good. All right, Tom, I appreciate your help today. As always, we'll talk to you again next week. Have yourself a good week in the fortified nation's capital.
Thanks, Howard. Bye-bye.
Talk to you. Tom Squitieri, our D.C. reporter, checks in every Tuesday with us to kind of catch up on some of the big D.C. stories. We're going to talk about some things happening in West Virginia. We're going to talk about the income tax reduction proposed by Governor Justice, and he touts that as a way to bring more people into the state. A group of Democrats yesterday, including our own puppet master, Sean Fluharty, said, wait a minute, People don't come because of income tax. They come because of jobs. They come because of quality of life issues. And they said it's time for the legislature to focus on that. We will talk about all of this and more with the Senate Minority Leader from West Virginia, Stephen Baldwin. Coming up next here on the Watchdog Morning Show. It's 8:33, 27 till the hour, 46 degrees.
The WTRF Channel 7 News Update is brought to you by Thomas Auto Centers, Mall Road, St. Clairsville. Get the best deal at Thomas Auto Centers.
Now,
Dr. Pepper. Trying to teach my wife how to use AirPods. That's exactly right. I said, put them in your ear and they will work. It's not that difficult. He tells me all the time, though, I say, let me do that. Granddad, you don't know how to do it. I will do it. Excuse me. Let me know when Stephen Baldwin's on. I talked to him late last night, so I know he's anticipating being here. If he's not on, we're ready to go. I've got some other state stuff I'll do. Okay, good.
Disinfection systems, providing preventative and reactive disinfection to facilities around the region, while working with area hospitals on isolation areas and air filtering. At Panhandle, we continue to follow social distancing and hygiene protocols. We are dedicated to our community, and together, we will get through this.
Imagine yourself in a Toyota, like a new 21 Highlander or the all-new 21 Sienna, both with $1,500 cash back. Or check out a new 21 RAV4 and take up to $1,250 cash back. Or a new 21 Camry with up to $1,750 cash back. Visit buyatoyota.com for more deals, local inventory, and to find a dealer near you. You can take cash back or apply toward down payment. Offers vary for hybrid models and exclude TRD models. See your dealer for details. Ready, set, go get your Toyota today. Offers end March 31st. Toyota.
Does your dog need groomed or walked? Are you looking for a pet sitter or dog boarding options? If so, call Dirty Paws, Wheeling's newest pet care service, providing the Ohio Valley with everyone's pet care needs. Check us out on Facebook at Dirty Paws WHG or call 304-639-7754.
Tune in to Marshall County's second favorite son, Donnie Gilbert, Fridays from noon to 2 on the Valley's only network dedicated to live and local talk radio, The Watchdog.
There's a time and a place for everything, including a different point of view. This is that time and place. You're listening to the Watchdog Morning Show with Howard Monroe, brought to you in part by Wheeling Hospital.
46 degrees at the Wheeling, Ohio County Airport, 46 degrees here at my home studios in the Elm Grove section of Wheeling, 46 degrees at the Robinson Auto Group Studios, downtown Wheeling, in the heart of the Ohio Valley, where Brother Biff is hanging out, pushing the buttons, trying to keep me under control the best that he can. He does a pretty good job, but sometimes I run afield and then he has to lasso me and bring me back in. Next hour, we'll talk about some local stories. Wheeling University is put on probation by the Higher Learning Commission. We'll talk about why that's happening. The I-70 work is going to shift patterns again around the Fort Henry Bridge. I want to alert you to that. And I thought this was a done deal. The Ohio County deputies, County Sheriff's Office, has been having some contractual issues with the county school board in terms of being school resource officers. I thought this was all resolved, but apparently it's not, and we'll talk about that. Plus, Biff, you gotta, I don't know whether to laugh, cry, or shake my head. A story about a prostitution arrest in Bel Air on the Facebook page from WTRF.com, from WTRF. 258 comments on a prostitution arrest. And it's just amazing to me. It's amazing to me the things people say.
I'm sure there are some dandies on there.
So we'll talk about that a little bit next hour. The prostitution arrest itself is not that big a deal. I mean, it may be a big deal, but you understand what I'm saying. It's not, that in itself is not a conversational story, but it's like these comments, holy mackerel. And what's interesting is almost all of them are in defense of prostitution.
Well, again, when the comments become the story instead of the actual news story, that says something right there.
Yeah, exactly. So that's something coming up in the next hour of the show. Turning our attention downstate right now, I want to talk about some things happening in the legislature again. With me this morning is the Senate Minority Leader, Stephen Baldwin. Stephen, good morning. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Howard. Thanks for having me. Don't read the comments. That's rule number one.
That's a very wise move. And actually, I don't either. This particular story, I looked at it, and it was a benign story. It's just literally a news story. There was an arrest made. And then I saw 258 comments. It's like, oh, I got to see what they're saying. And that was my
I understand. It's hard to resist. I understand.
That was my downfall. Give me a quick analysis in your mind, Mr. Senator, of how this session has gone. What has this session been like in your mind?
It's been filled with all the wrong priorities as far as I'm concerned. I mean, a couple of reflections. I mean, one, it's been fast. Normally you start stretching a little bit, you start jogging, and then you get into things, you're kind of sprinting at the end. This session's been just the opposite. It was a mad dash, a sprint at the beginning, and hasn't really slowed down. I mean, the speed at which the session is moving internally, this is, kind of inside baseball stuff, but, like Bill's consistently being single reference. Just not waiting on fiscal notes. It allows the process to move really quickly, which can provide some efficiency, but it also provides some room to make mistakes. But overall, I mean, I'm just a little perplexed at the priorities. Like broadband to me is top issue. It's number one, number two, number three. We're halfway done now, just about halfway done. Haven't done anything meaningful on the number one, number two, number three issue in the state, and that's disappointing.
Yeah, going into this session, I would have thought, if you had asked me, and probably people didn't ask me, but I told them anyways, I would have expected broadband to be the number one issue. If for no other reason, then I think that both sides of the aisle seem to feel it's critical. So we have at least agreement on a problem. We might have some disagreements on how to reach the solution, but we have an agreement on a problem. I really thought that would be front and center, and I haven't seen a whole lot really done about that.
Yeah, I thought it was too. I mean, I think that's a reasonable assumption. There's bipartisan support, and I mean, if you just, I know in your position, you're talking to folks all the time, hearing from folks, it's the same to me, and that's what I hear most all the time. Everybody's top priority, for the most part, is broadband, whether you're talking about young folks who want to be able to ensure they can attend their blended or virtual school to the best extent possible, or just, work in the tech sector moving forward. If you're talking about working age, middle-class folks who want to be able to work from home, or if you're talking about elderly folks who want to make sure they can get to their telehealth appointments, for example. So, I mean, it touches everybody. And I was really hopeful that was going to be top priority, and we'd all, hold hands together and move broadband forward. Unfortunately, that's not been the case so far.
And it becomes an economic development issue. There's a lot of talk about trying to make West Virginia an attractive place for remote workers, which is a concept I completely agree with. But who's going to want to come to the state to be a remote worker when the broadband is, according to one report I've seen, our internet access is 48th in the country. I mean, it's a great place to remote work. And like I work from home all the time now here in Wheeling. There are great pockets that are good, but the state in general is in such bad shape that I don't see how you attract remote workers when your broadband is so bad.
Yes, sir. I mean, I think you're right. I agree that that's a wonderful opportunity for the state, but I just don't think it's possible until you solve the broadband issue. And I think you're right that it's an economic development issue. A lot of times, folks here at the State House will talk a lot about taxes, and that's the way to drive the economy forward. We need to work on the personal income tax, or the personal property tax, or the corporate tax. Those things just don't really move the bar. You can't even get a seat at the table until you have some basic things in place if you want to do economic development. You got to have water, sewer, broadband. And if you don't have those all set ready to go right from the start, you don't even get a second look. You don't even get down the list the quality of life, workforce, maybe some tax issues down the line. So, yeah, we've got to get that right from the start.
Yeah, the governor yet is touting his income tax reduction plan as bringing in one number I've heard is 400,000 people. I think he has always said hundreds of thousands of people will come into the state if we just reduce and eventually eliminate the income tax. I have argued that premise is dramatically flawed, but I don't know. What do you think? I think Senator Blair, the Senate President, has used that 400,000 figure. And I would say that, one, I think it's a laudable goal. I think we've identified a problem, and that's our population loss, our export of young people, our brain drain, whatever you want to call it.
I think that is a major problem, and maybe the central problem that a lot of other things stem from. But I share your your concern about whether or not this is the solution. Is personal income tax going to be the thing that turns people around? I talk to a lot of young people, try to listen to a lot of young people, and they don't ask for this. I mean, this is not even on their radar in terms of things that they'd like to be able to stay in West Virginia. So I'm skeptical about that. At the same time, I think what the governor is saying in terms of this could change. If this would change the economy, then it would provide that thing that would allow young people to stay here, which is they need jobs. They need good-paying jobs in modern sectors. I just don't know if you can make that bridge. I think that's an open question.
But you and some other folks yesterday, including our own Sean Flaherty from the House, were talking about some legislation you think that, and some other ideas that might be a little more directly useful to attracting and actually retaining young people in the state, right?
Yes, sir, that's right. I think that is a central problem, a foundational problem that we face in West Virginia. We just have some different ideas about how to address it. We talked about some of those yesterday. For example, one idea that Delegate Flaherty has had introduced as a bill for several years, which I think is a terrific idea. I don't know, you may have talked with him about it before in the past, Howard, but it's his Stay in the State Act. So it's a way businesses, can work with students on student loan issues, which is something we hear a lot about from young people. The Promise Scholarship, we have various proposals to broaden that, whereas potentially that's even under attack right now. We don't want to see it go away. We want to see it broadened so we have more young people, and perhaps young people who would be willing for some additional help going to school to give some service here in the state of West Virginia, so that it's a win-win. And we talked about some other policies too. Young people want a state that's inclusive. They want a state that has opportunities. They want a state that has good outdoor recreation and clean. You got to have clean water for that. They want a state where they can raise a family. And you got to have hope for the future. And I'm just afraid that young people aren't feeling that hope for the future right now.
I was just going to say, to me, young people especially are looking for a state that has a future-looking attitude. And quite frankly, especially this session, in my opinion, it's been a let's go backwards attitude that we've had. We tend to dwell too much in the past and look to preserving the past and not looking at thinking towards the future. And that's not what young people, I don't think, and I'm not a young anymore, but I talk to young people. That's not what I think they want. And I look at things like equality issues. These are things that are important to young people. Frankly, are important to most businesses too. The newer, forward-thinking businesses don't want to come to a state where they're putting in regulations or trying to make it easier to discriminate and harder to be treated equally. People want to see equality issues as a touchstone of a place they want to move, and I don't think we moved forward on that nearly enough in this session or in the last couple of them.
No, and unfortunately, I don't think we're going to anytime soon because of exactly what you said. I think you said it really well. We've been sort of backward looking instead of looking to the future, and I think you're right. Young people are looking to the future, but there's this really interesting nexus between young people's values and also business values in the state of West Virginia, which you raised. I was on a call about a month ago with economic development folks, business leaders from across the state, including in your area, Kanawha Valley, North Central, and they were pushing legislative leadership towards equality policies, towards non-discrimination bills, They said, if y'all want to expand business, well, you need to help us out here because we can't expand business there if y'all aren't going to, move into the future with us and really live out your West Virginia values and make sure everybody's welcome and you can't be kicked out of your house for who you love and you can't lose your job over who you love. So you have young people and business saying the same thing to state leadership, but they're not listening.
And those are front and center issues for young people and for forward-thinking businesses. They're not, number 22 and 23 on a list. That's pretty important to them, are issues of equality and diversity. Another thing that I think is important to businesses, particularly, and to young people, is to see a willingness to look towards the alternative fuels. Now, I'm not saying we get rid of coal. I'm not talking anti-coal. But I am saying that we have a tendency to want to protect coal so much that we don't acknowledge the reality that alternative fuels are becoming a bigger and bigger part of the energy marketplace, and that businesses and young people want to come to a place where the opportunity to use alternative fuels is very real.
Yeah, I think that goes back to the issue you talked about before, which is, they're looking to the future. They want to be hopeful about the future, and I think they're realistic about, coal's been a vital part of our past, and it'll be an important part of our future. But it's got to be broader than that. If we're going to continue to be an energy-producing state, we've got to have more of an all-of-the-above strategy. I had a town hall with some high school students. This was, I think, about 2 weeks ago. And they asked about this very issue multiple times. They just really couldn't understand why we don't adopt, an all-of-the-above strategy where, we have solar, we have wind, we have coal, we have gas. It made zero sense to them. And when I tried to talk to them about, the cultural significance of coal and lobbying power of certain energy firms here in the State House, they just said that was ridiculous. It's totally ridiculous. So I think you're on to something, Howard.
Before I let you go, and I know you have another meeting to get to, so very quickly, on the income tax reduction issue, your thoughts on the proposal as the governor has given it to us. Again, we've talked about the premise that I don't really agree with, and I'm not sure that you completely do either, but the proposal as we have it, eliminate the income tax, raise the sales tax, probably trim the budget and so on. What do you think of the governor's proposal in general?
Well, I like that he's thinking big. I like that he thinks outside the box. I like that he wants to try and do something to turn the economy around. And I like that he admitted that, the things that we've done in the past that we've said are going to turn the economy around haven't turned the economy around. I don't see how this does either, though. I don't see how eliminating the personal income tax, and then replacing most of the revenue, but still leaving a hole with this wide variety of unpopular taxes, is going to work. I just don't think this gets through the House of Delegates. I just don't see a path forward there. So what I imagine will happen is that there'll be a different version of this. Senate leadership may put forward their own version of the bill, which is different than the governor's, similar in scope, similar in intent, but a different package. And it's probably going to look a lot like it did back in 2017. And what happened then, this whole thing just sort of collapsed under its own weight because it was so complicated and so unpopular. And this moment feels very much like that to me.
Senator, I want to get off to your other activities. Thank you for joining us today. We'll probably have you on more often. I'm glad we had a chance to connect here today. I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
No, I thank you, sir. I love listening. Now I get to actually talk to you, which is great. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
All right, we'll do it again. Thanks very much. Appreciate it. State Senator and Senate Minority Leader Steve Baldwin this morning here on the Watchdog Morning Show. He's got a COVID meeting of some kind to go to at 9 o'clock, so I want to give him a couple of minutes to get wherever he's got to go. I'm guessing probably a Zoom. I don't know. But I told him I'd get him out in time to go to go to that. It was a good discussion that Sean and Senator Baldwin, Senator Wofield, who else do we have? Delegate Hornbuckle were all part of this little gathering yesterday, talking about attracting and maintaining young people in the state. And it's not income tax reduction. That's not what people are saying. Oh boy, if you just reduce the income tax, I'll go. They want jobs. They want opportunities for jobs. They want quality of life issues. They would love to see something like the Flu's Stay in the State Act, which basically works a way for their student loans to be forgiven, at least partly so on. Lots of things that we could do. We're just not doing them yet. Got a couple of local stories I want to delve into. We'll do that coming up next. It's 9 o'clock right now here on the Watchdog Morning Show.
The Watchdog is FM 98.1, AM 1600 WKKX Wheeling, FM 97.7, AM 1370 WVLY Moundsville.
The ABC News is brought to you by Thomas Auto Centers, Mall Road, St. Clairsville. Get the best deal at Thomas Auto Centers.
I'm Sherry Preston in Minneapolis.
It was good, but I wish he wouldn't have been turning his paper so much. I mean, it was okay, but you just hear those papers rustling. So, but he was getting ready for a 9 o'clock meeting. He probably was trying to do the interview and get ready at the same time. So it was fine. It worked out. It is interesting. He's one of these ones. I hear this all the time. I finally reached out to him yesterday as the minority leader. And he said, "Oh, I listen all the time." You know, it's amazing to me how many people in Charleston do listen to us on a regular basis. Yeah, so it's always good to hear. You heard, I know Brad yesterday kept referring to the interview before him, so he was, listening. It's nice to hear that they're paying attention down there. Probably not in the governor's office, I'm guessing, but. No, exactly. All right, take a little break and we shall reconvene. I want to do some local stuff, including hookers in Bel Air.